On a crisp evening in 1952, the quiet town of Flatwoods, West Virginia, became the center of one of the most compelling and eerie UFO encounters in American history. Known as the Flatwoods Monster, the event has captured the imaginations of believers and skeptics alike, and its story remains a captivating piece of West Virginia folklore. On September 12, 1952, at around 7:15 p.m., a small group of boys spotted a pulsating, reddish sphere floating around a hill, hovering briefly, and then dropping behind the crest of another in the small town of Flatwoods. From the far side of the hill, a bright glow shone, as if from a landed object. On their way to see what had landed, the boys were joined by others who had witnessed the flying spectacle, including beautician Kathleen May, her two sons, their friend Tommy Heyer, Eugene Lemon, who was a National Guardsman, and his dog. The dog ran ahead of the group and was briefly out of sight as it ran around the hill. Suddenly, it was heard barking furiously and then came running back, fleeing with its tail between its legs, apparently in fear. A foul-smelling mist covered the ground, making the searchers' eyes water. The two leading the group, Lemon and Neil Nunley, got to the top of the hill first and observed a big ball of fire, 50 feet to their right. To the group's left, on the hilltop just under the branches of a large oak tree, were two small blue lights. At Mrs. May's suggestion, Lemon pointed his flashlight in their direction. To everybody's horror, the flashlight highlighted a huge, grotesque-looking creature with a head shaped like the ace of spades, as several of the witnesses independently described it. Inside the head was a kind of circular window, dark except for the two lights from which pale blue beams extended straight ahead. In their quick observation of the being, they could see nothing that resembled legs and skinny, spindly arms like birds' talons. The creature, which witnesses claimed was as high as 12 feet tall, moved towards the witnesses, gliding rather than walking. Seconds later, it changed direction and began heading for the glowing sphere from which it had apparently come. All of this took place in a matter of a few moments, during which time Lemon fainted. The others dragged him with them as they ran from the scene. When interviewed about half an hour later by Lee Stewart Jr., a reporter for the Braxton Democrat, the witnesses were barely able to speak. Some sought first aid. Stewart felt that there was no question that they had seen something that had badly frightened them. Soon afterward, after Lemon had recovered, Stewart and Lemon went to the spot where they had seen the creature and the strange glowing ball. Stewart also noted that there was an acrid odor in the air that irritated his nose and throat. He returned alone to the site first thing the next morning. He found skid marks going down the hill towards a large area of recently matted grass, which seemed to indicate that a large object had rested there. The encounter, which the newspapers quickly dubbed the Flatwoods Monster sighting, took place during a flurry of sightings of unusual flying objects in the region. Bailey Frame, a resident of nearby Birch River, reported seeing a bright orange ball circling over the area where the monster was spotted. It was visible for around 15 minutes before veering off towards the airport at Sutton, where the object was also reported. According to an account, 1 week before the Flatwoods event, a Weston woman and her mother encountered the same or similar creature. The younger woman was so frightened that she needed hospitalization after the event. Both also reported the noxious odor. Years later, writer John Keel interviewed a couple who claimed that on the evening following the original sighting, and 10 to 15 miles to the southwest of it, they encountered a 10-foot-tall creature emitting a foul odor. It approached their stalled car, then returned to the woods. Moments later, a luminous, pulsating sphere rose from the trees and ascended into the sky. Skeptics have offered several explanations to demystify the Flatwoods Monster sighting. One prominent theory suggests that the monster was nothing more than an owl, possibly a barn owl, which, when startled, could spread its wings and appear larger and more menacing, especially in the dim light and under the stress of the moment. The glowing eyes could be explained by the reflection of the flashlight in the owl's eyes. But, come on, now, does this thing look like a barn owl to you? Oh, and by the way, do barn owls happen to be 12 feet tall? Do they float, or they, maybe, use wings rather than levitate through the air? I mean, I'm all for being a skeptic and seeking the most rational explanation. But, come on, at least make an effort. Anyway, adding to the mystery, when interviewed in the early 1990s, Kathleen May Horner recalled that two men, first identifying themselves as reporters, then acknowledging they were employees of the government, interviewed her. This is not hard to believe. It is a fact that the U.S. Air Force dispatched two plainclothes investigators to the scene. Like the skeptics, they attributed the incident to hysteria inflamed by a barn owl. Again, come on, barn owl? Of course. As you may know, the Flatwoods Monster isn't the only mysterious creature that calls West Virginia home. The famous Mothman, a legendary figure with large wings and glowing red eyes, was famously sighted in Point Pleasant, about 100 miles from Flatwoods, in the mid-1960s. While the Mothman is generally described as having a more bird-like appearance and is often associated with disaster prophecies, the similarities in the eerie eyes and regional proximity have led some to speculate that they might be related. It's intriguing to think these two neighbors might be related. However, the Mothman is known for its huge, very noticeable wings, and its pretty much humanoid appearance. It also tends to fly like a bird, not float. It doesn't still fear, like the Flatwoods thing, but that noxious odor isn't part of the Mothman folklore either. Maybe a lot more likely, and intriguing, is that the Flatwoods Monster story closely resembles a monster known to the native tribes of the region. The legendary Flying Head, or Canasani, a creature from Iroquois, Wyandot, and Shawnee folklore. The Flying Head is depicted as a ravenous spirit cursed with insatiable hunger. It typically appears as a large, human-like head with terrible eyes, and a large mouth filled with razor-sharp fangs. In some accounts, it has an indistinct body. It has bat-like wings or bird-like talons, and its hide is impenetrable. According to legends, the Flying Head drove native inhabitants from their lands, instilling an overpowering supernatural fear in anyone who sees them, much like the Flatwoods Monster. This spirit's imposing size, frightening eyes, and seemingly invulnerable body, covered in armor, draws some intriguing parallels to the creature described by the Flatwoods witnesses. It's not known, for certain, if the old native beliefs equated an infernal stench with an evil spirit creature, like the Flying Head. But, given this is the almost universal earthly sign of an evil entity nearby, the odds are pretty good this would be seen as a Flying Head trait too. So, the fearsome appearance and imposing size, bird-like hands, indistinct body mass, invulnerability, and sense of terror it brings. Add that all up, and the Flatwoods Monster does seem to resemble the Flying Head legend. So, really, if any of the natives, back in the day, or even the old-time locals familiar with native legends, probably would have called it this before the age when flying saucers became a thing. You have to admit, the old native cryptid resembles it in a lot of ways. Safe to say then, it probably would have been their most likely suspect back then. The Flatwoods Monster remains an enigmatic and chilling piece of American folklore. Whether it's really just all a product of misidentification or owl-induced mass hysteria, we can never really tell for sure. But the thought it might be aliens, or even more intriguing maybe, a native Flying Head spirit or Mothman in beast mode. It definitely makes for an intriguing tale, wouldn't you say? In any case, I'll be keeping an eye out for that thing, if I ever happen to be wandering around the woodlands of West Virginia someday. Oh, and I'll be watching out for those 12-foot barn owls too. That just about wraps up tonight's tale from Lorehound. Follow us as we sniff out more of history's most interesting stories.
As the hound dog entered the dimly lit library, he sensed an aura of mystery surrounding the ancient scrolls. The dusty shelves towered above him as he sniffed his way through the labyrinth of books. Suddenly, he picked up a scent and followed it to a secluded corner. With bated breath, he approached the shelf and pawed at the book, revealing the hidden scroll. As he rolled it out, he knew he had discovered a treasure worth protecting at all costs.